When Udo spots him, he nervously asks where the principal is. But before he can react, the buff demon grabs his shoulders and says that he is the principal. Completely stunned, Udo can't believe that this massive hunk is actually his principal. The demon then casually introduces himself as Gandu, and what truly leaves Udo speechless is when Gandu reveals that he's none other than the current Demon King. Yu immediately straightens up when Gandu tells him there are still many things he doesn't understand yet. Just as he starts to get nervous, Gandu suddenly grins and says with excitement that he's going to teach you everything he needs to know. With that, Gandu asks you if he knows why Jinsei is called the Demon King Academy. Without waiting for an answer, he explains that it's because every generation's Demon King is chosen from this very academy. But then, Gandu leans in and points out that Yu's situation is special. Unlike anything in Jinsei's history, a human student has never been accepted here before. He goes on to reveal that while it was the academy that officially recruited you, it was the Lover's Arcana itself that chose its master. When Yu asks why something like this would happen to a mere human like him, Gandu sighs in frustration and admits he doesn't know either. And that's exactly what worries him. Feeling guilty, Yu apologizes for causing so much chaos, but the principal quickly waves it off. He tells you that none of this is his fault. In fact, he's more than worthy of joining the Demon King War, where he'll have to face and eliminate the other 22 candidates vying for the title of Demon King. Seeing the despair on Yu's face, Gandu quickly tries to lift his spirits, saying there are plenty of fun events included in the process. Curious, Yu asks what kind of events he means. Gandu explains that the war lasts an entire year, and throughout that time, each candidate must take part in a variety of challenges. The better Yu performs, the higher his chances of winning. Plus, he'll earn powerful items he can use in the final battle. Yu then asks if it's true that he can turn anyone into cards. Gandu nods, confirming it with a grin, and says that all Yu needs is a contract. And just like that, his cards are ready for use. When Yu asks what happens to those who aren't chosen as Demon King candidates or turned into cards, Gandu explains that those people must decide which Demon King candidate they want to support. With that, Gandu urges Yu to give it his all, warning him that he'll be competing against candidates from powerful and wealthy families. To stand a chance, Yu needs to start recruiting the best cards as soon as possible. Before leaving, Yu asks one last question, if he really deserves to take part in this war. Gandu's expression suddenly turns serious. Then he casually changes the topic, asking if he wants to talk about anime instead. Realizing the conversation is over, Yu quietly excuses himself and heads back to his classroom. There, he finds an empty seat waiting. When he tries to apologize to Tachi for all the chaos he caused, she flinches in fear but quickly stammers that it's fine. Soon after, Lizel shows up and invites Yu to have lunch with her. Delighted to see a friendly face, Yu agrees, and Lizel cheerfully leads him to the school cafeteria. When the food is served, Yu stares at it like someone who hasn't eaten in days. As he glances at Lizel, he can't help but think that her parents must have created her with a lot of love. Out of nowhere, Lizel lifts her fork and holds it close to his face, telling him to open his mouth. Yu suddenly becomes hyper-aware of his surroundings as everyone in the cafeteria turns to stare. But Lizel calmly tells him not to worry about the others, which makes him finally give in and accept the bite. As he chews, tears well up in his eyes, realizing he's just had an indirect kiss with Lizel. After finishing their meal, Lizel continues showing Udo around the school. However, as they walk together, whispers begin spreading among the students, questioning why someone like Lizel would be hanging out with a filthy human. Before Udo can feel disheartened, Lizel proudly grabs his hand and tells him not to let their words get to him. Still, Udo can't help but ask her about the class system among demons. Lizel explains how it works, revealing that the Demon King not only commands the most powerful magic families of the underworld but also rules over the human world. During their talk, she mentions that demon families extract energy from humans by stirring their hearts and evoking various emotions. Sometimes, demons even make humans suffer intentionally to draw out stronger energy. Hearing this, Udo suddenly understands why guilt once called him livestock. Noticing the look on his face, Lizel quickly adds that not all magic families are cruel. Some use art and architecture to inspire positive energy instead. Udo thanks her for being so honest, and Lizel smiles, saying she's glad he's a candidate for the next Demon King. Unlike the others who crave glory and power, she believes that as a human, Udo has the potential to rule both worlds with love. Just then, they step into the gym only to be met with a shocking sight. Guilt lies unconscious on the floor, and a menacing-looking guy turns to Udo, asking if he's the one who was supposed to babysit Guilt yesterday. Startled, Yudo quickly asks the guy who he is. The man smirks and introduces himself as a card from the world known as Creature the Night. Hearing that, Yudo cluelessly asks if he's a friend of Guilt, only for his question to be answered when Krieger brutally stomps on Guilt without hesitation. Still confused by his actions, Yudo asks Krieger whether he's on Guilt's side or not. The muscle-headed Krieger snaps back in anger, saying that since Guilt lost to a mere human, he's nothing but a disgrace to the world. His defeat has tainted the honor of his master, SP. Something Krieger swears he can never forgive. With that, Krieger warns Yudo to keep his Pinocchio nose out of this. But of course, Yudo, being the good guy he is, shouts at Krieger to stop, insisting there's no reason to destroy his own ally. Now furious, Krieger raises his sword toward Yudo, declaring that he'll just start by finishing him off first. As Yudo stares at his impending doom in shock, Reina suddenly bursts onto the scene, sword in hand, and firmly declares that she won't let Krieger lay a single finger on Yudo. A fierce clash of swords erupts between the two. Krieger smirks, acknowledging Reina by saying he's heard of her, a blossoming talent known for her impressive swordsmanship. Watching them exchange blows, Yudo can't help but feel guilty for dragging Reina into his mess. Stepping forward, Yudo firmly tells Reina that it's unacceptable for her to fight his battles. Both Lizel and Riona try to protest, but Yudo cuts them off, declaring that if he can't handle challenges like this on his own, then he doesn't deserve the Demon King's crown. When Yudo declares that he'll defeat Krieger himself, Lizel reluctantly steps back but places her hand over her chest plate. She warns him that since he's already used magic earlier, he'll need to replenish it if he wants any chance of winning against Krieger. Adding to her warning, Lizel tells Yudo not to show any mercy toward his opponent, because one moment of hesitation could cost him his life. Yudo gently removes her hand and assures her that this is enough for him. As he turns to face Krieger, Lizel calls out with confidence, telling him that he's got this. Watching the scene unfold, Krieger scoffs and calls Yudo a fool for not using the women to fight for him. But Yudo fires back, explaining that since he hasn't forged any contracts with them, he can't use them even if he wanted to. Unimpressed, Krieger refuses to acknowledge his reasoning and mocks him further, calling him pathetic for getting angry on behalf of Guilt, the very guy who was rude to him in the first place. In response, Yudo firmly says that while what Guilt did to him was wrong, what Krieger is doing now is even worse because no one should ever treat a friend like that. Enraged by his words, Krieger roars in fury, shouting that Yudo disgusts him, before unleashing a powerful burst of magic straight at him. Yudo, who only knows the spell Faraga, decides to cast it. His choice instantly draws laughter and mockery from the crowd, until Krieger's confident grin fades. His eyes widen in pure horror as he notices the formula rapidly evolving. Before he can even react, the spell detonates, and Krieger is engulfed by the blast, realizing, too late, that he's actually been defeated by a filthy human. Meanwhile, Yudo stands frozen, completely stunned by the sheer force of his own power. Lizel praises him with a smile, but her expression suddenly stiffens, and she falls silent. Confused, Yudo turns to her and asks what's wrong, but before she can answer, a chill runs down his spine. His instincts scream danger. Then, a deep, menacing voice echoes around him, a voice belonging to none other than Aspie, the Demon King candidate who wields the world arcana. When Krieger sees his master, he struggles to stand, but Aspie's cold, crushing presence forces him back down. Aspie remarks that he arrived after hearing Krieger was punishing Guilt, though from what he's seeing, the story seems quite different. Before Krieger can even speak, Aspie silences him with a glare, then shifts his gaze to Lizel. His tone turns sharp as he demands to know why she's interfering with his cards after refusing his summoning order. Lizel immediately points at Yudo, trying to shift the blame, and tells Aspie that everything was his doing. Shocked, Aspie turns to Krieger and demands to know if her words are true. When the terrified Krieger confirms it, Aspie's expression darkens, and with a furious wave of his hand, he begins summoning a powerful magic formula. The moment Yudo feels the crushing pressure of that spell, he instantly realizes, the one who possesses the world arcana stands on an entirely different level. Meanwhile, Aspie orders Krieger to get up and looks him straight in the eye, asking if he truly has what it takes to become his knight. Trembling, Krieger nervously answers that he does. But Aspie smirks with confidence and declares that he will be the one to rule over both mortals and demons. To achieve that, he says, he must possess absolute power over his enemies. Yet his own knight stands before him in such a pitiful, weakened state. Seeing Aspi's rage, Krieger desperately tries to speak, insisting that it's not over yet, that he'll prove himself worthy and win. But just as he swears on his sword, Aspi smirks coldly and kicks it with such force that it shatters into pieces. Staring down at him, Aspi mocks, asking why he would swear on a sword that couldn't even cut down a mere human. Krieger is left completely stunned. His sword, a family heirloom said to be unbreakable, now lies in ruins. Aspi coldly tells him that he's unworthy of being his card. Shocked and desperate, Krieger pleads for another chance, but Aspi's expression darkens. With a terrifying glare, he forcefully pushes Krieger away, sending him crashing hard into the wall. Meanwhile, Udo watches closely, realizing that Aspi's power is so overwhelming, it can destroy even what's supposed to be unbreakable. Clearing his throat, Aspi shifts his gaze to Liesel and demands that she join his side. But Liesel stays firm, her expression unwavering, and calmly replies that she's already serving someone else. She goes even further, mocking him by saying he's the kind of demon who takes pleasure in dominating others, something she completely despises. Hearing that, Aspi turns his eyes toward Udo, realizing he's the one Liesel has chosen to serve. With a sharp scoff, Aspi declares that he will be the one to rule this world, and that anyone who isn't him will be forced to kneel in submission before his power. Turning back to Liesel, Aspi warns her that even if she disobeys him now, the future will still lead her to serve under him. But Liesel calmly responds that she's choosing to believe in a better future instead. Hearing that, the arrogant demon smirks and coldly tells her that she'll regret those words soon enough. With that, Aspi turns his back and walks away, leaving Udo completely stunned. Liesel admits that Aspi will be a formidable opponent, while Riona sighs in relief that things didn't escalate any further. Later, when Udo returns to the palace, he's suddenly engulfed by darkness. Moments later, as he opens his eyes, he finds 3 villains standing over him. Realizing he's still inside the palace, Udo quickly straightens up, his expression turning serious. He apologizes to the girls for making them worry so much. Then, with a frustrated sigh, he calls himself an idiot for provoking a powerful enemy like Aspi, someone he knows he can't defeat yet, all because of another guy who treated him like trash. However, Liesel gently assures him that this is exactly what makes him special, and it's the very reason they're proud to serve him. One by one, the girls express their affection for Udo, overwhelming him with their heartfelt support. Flustered, Udo shakes off his inappropriate thoughts and takes a deep breath before asking them if they really believe he can become the next Demon King. When they all smile at him with unwavering faith, Udo straightens up and boldly asks Liesel to lend him her power so he can rule the worlds. The moment those words leave his lips, Liesel leans in and kisses him. Suddenly, a voice echoes, announcing that Liselheim Kami has now become a queen. With that, she vows to dedicate herself entirely for Udo's sake. Before he can even respond, Miyabi suddenly gives him a playful lesson in French, then smirks, teasing him for getting all nervous. A voice then echoes, declaring that Miyabi Uyuas has now become a princess. Reina, however, nervously admits that she's worthless, but still asks Udo to accept her. Moved by her words, Udo gently kisses her lips. Instantly, the omniscient voice echoes, declaring that Ryukoi has been promoted to knighthood. With everything now complete, Udo takes a deep breath and acknowledges that there's no turning back. From this point on, he must become the next Demon King for everyone's sake. Meanwhile, at the world's palace, Asprel remarks that it's truly shocking. A mere human like Udo managed to take down Krieger. Hearing this, his card, Haida, reports that Udo has officially formed contracts with 3 cards, including Liesel. This revelation enrages Aspit even more. He curses Liesel for rejecting him and choosing to form a formal contract with Udo instead. Seething with fury, Aspit declares that he has always used his power to crush his enemies and force them into ultimate submission. That domination has always brought him immense satisfaction, for he has planted fear deep into the hearts of others, and that, he claims, is why only he is worthy to rule. Haida fuels Aspit's rage even further, insisting that what Udo has done is unforgivable, and that they cannot just let him hog all the glory. Nodding in agreement, Aspit declares that he can crush Udo anytime he desires, but it will be Liesel who truly suffers the wrath of his fury. Thrilled by his master's violent intentions, Haida eagerly assures Aspit that he'll crush Udo and capture Liesel for him. However, he then asks about Miyabi. When Aspit questions why, Hada shamelessly admits that Miyabi's curves drive him absolutely wild. Once Aspit gives him the green light, he coldly warns that failure is not an option. As his ace, defeat would mean death. With a wicked grin, Hada confidently vows to wipe out Yudo and present Lizel to his master as a tribute. The next morning, Yudo hears a soft, sweet voice calling for him to wake up. Still half asleep, he thinks his lover Arcane's voice sounds a little different today. But the moment he opens his eyes, his heart nearly jumps out of his chest. It's Miyabi, casually smiling as she tells him she was with him all night. As it turns out, the little devil had snuck in through the window. When she saw Yudo sleeping, she decided to cuddle up behind him and play the big spoon all night long. Letting out a sigh, Yudo looks at her and asks why she's dressed like that, just like the king who believed he was wearing a special invisible suit. Miyabi proudly explains that this is just how she usually sleeps. Suddenly, Yudo hears his father's voice and starts to panic. Before he can even hide Miyabi, his father walks into the room, and Miyabi, completely unfazed, greets him with a smile, casually revealing that she's the daughter of Yuyua's. Hearing that, Yudo's father shouts for his wife, announcing excitedly that the daughter of Yuyua's has graced their humble home. When Yudo's mother rushes in, Miyabi smiles confidently and tells her that Yudo is in her capable hands, assuring her there's absolutely nothing to worry about. Suddenly, Lizel walks in through the door like a perfectly normal demon, politely bowing as she apologizes to Yudo's parents for showing up unannounced. The moment she introduces herself and mentions her family name, Yudo's parents freeze in shock, realizing that someone as important as Lizel has just stepped into their modest home. Meanwhile, Lizel narrows her eyes and scolds Miyabi for being so reckless. But the mischievous princess quickly fires back, questioning why the queen herself is at Yudo's house. As Lizel hesitates to answer, Yudo lets out a sigh and says he's already awake. There's no need for all this drama. Before he can finish, Miyabi clings to his arm with a grin, declaring that she'll be the one to take him to school today. After that chaotic night, Yudo stands before a training dummy, ready to practice. He casts his favorite go-to spell, Faraga, unleashing a fiery blast. Lizel watches in awe, impressed by the sheer destructive force of such a basic spell. She tells Yuto that its power might even rival the advanced version, Fizzard. With that, Lizel gestures for Yuto to come closer so they can restore his strength. As they embrace, she softly whispers that the reason he holds such incredible power is surely because of his arcana. Still, she reminds him that he must keep training relentlessly if he wants to become even stronger. With that, Lizel encourages him to give the spell Fizzard a try. Nodding at his teacher's advice, Yuto calls on his arcana to teach him the technique. Once the learning process is complete, Yuto quietly wonders if he can actually pull it off on his first attempt. But the moment he shouts, Fizzard, the entire room erupts, looking like the aftermath of the Chernobyl nuclear plant. As Lizel surveys the massive damage, Yuto nervously asks if he did something wrong, only for her to calmly reply that his execution was absolutely flawless. Suddenly, Yuto buries his face between Lizel's pillows for a quick power-up, boldly claiming that she was right. After his encounter with Aspit, he finally understands that he must grow even stronger to win the coming war. Hearing this, Lizel gently consoles Yuto, reminding him that he has yet to unlock the full power of the lover's arcana. Still, she warns that she'll have to be strict with him until the war begins, because becoming worthy of the Demon King's title will demand relentless effort. But as Lizel finishes her serious lecture, Yuto can only think to himself that her milkers might just be his ultimate kryptonite.